So who's doing the intro today?
I don't know. Do you want to do the intro?
I don't desperately want to do the intro, but I don't think you want to do the intro either.
I
Even though
mean,
you like doing the intro.
I do like doing the intro, but I want to pass the joy of doing the intro on to you.
So you find joy in giving me joy about doing the intro. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So now I have to do the intro.
Yes. Lawyered.
Welcome to Gentlemen and Whiskey. I'm Nate.
I'm John.
Today we're going to be going through kind of a controversial topic within the world of whiskey and whiskey tasting, which is, which glassware do you use? Today in front of us we have three different options. We have a Glencairn, kind of an old standby. It's our personal choice. We'll get into that in a minute. We have a Norlan's glass, a company that's trying to give you the best of both worlds when it comes to whiskey glasses. And then we have a traditional rocks glass, kind of the old standby, what you'll find in most bars, most households, for drinking cocktails, whiskeys in general. Probably the cheapest offering, I would also say, of the options here on the table. We're going to dive into the pros and cons of each, give you our personal preferences, give you why we choose what we choose when we choose it, and also dive into this whiskey. John, what is it that we're drinking today?
Okay, so we're drinking a bottle of Eagle Rare. Not trying to flex. It's just what we had on hand that we both enjoy. It is difficult to find in certain areas.
But what we are really trying to dive into is these glasses. So let's start with the first one, which is the traditional Glencairn.
Yeah, so the Glencairn was designed by a company in Scotland for tasting whiskey. When I first started drinking whiskey, I had to make the decision between what I was going to use as a glass, between a rocks glass and a Glencairn. I had seen so many people tasting whiskey on Reddit and on Facebook, Instagram with these Glencairn glasses, and I just kind of thought it was a gimmick, but I wanted to know for my own sake if there was an actual difference. Sure. I think we should do a nosing difference.
Sure.
And then do into tastings.
I like that idea. I will also say at the start of this video, we are not sponsored or highlighted by any of these companies. All of these were purchased with our own money, no knowledge from any of the makers of these glasses or anything like that. And so there's no sponsorship, there's no bias necessarily on any one of these. There's a reason why we choose what we choose, and we'll get into that here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody wants to sponsor us with just double-digit followers, so.
Well, who knows? By the time this video goes out, we could have double-digit followers.
We could have triple-digit?
It'd be a stretch.
Got it. All right, so first off, we're going to go with Glencairn. We're going to nose, and then we're going to go through all the way.
Sure.
And then we'll taste from them. So
sure.
Cheers.
Cheers. Immediately, I'm noticing with this glass, it's a lot more concentrated. You get a lot more of that nose all at once. You're not necessarily, it's not weak, it's not necessarily, like you're getting, whatever that whiskey smells like, you get it pretty fully with one of these.
You get a pretty consistent nose depending on where you smell.
Sure.
You get a little bit of nuance from certain things, you know, if you're back a little bit further, if you are up top when you smell.
Sure.
I think it's fairly consistent though, and it's a bold, vibrant nose.
And I find that these are also pretty versatile. When you're judging a bourbon like what we are here today versus a Scotch versus a Japanese whiskey or something like that, you're still able to pull all of those elements out of something like that. They're a little awkward to hold.
Yes.
First impression.
Yep.
They make you kind of pretentious. You feel like you're drinking English tea with pinkies out. That's right. But other than that, I mean, they're very easy to nose out of. You do get used to them after a while, where you don't feel necessarily as uncomfortable. There are different ways that you can hold them.
Yep.
But it is something to get used to with that.
So pretty bold. I like the nose. It's very typical Eagle Rare.
Sure. Try the Norlan.
Yep. So right off the bat,
less nose.
Yeah, the nose is, I don't want to say non-existent, but it's very muted comparatively to the Glencairn. It looks badass.
Yeah, you got like the copper copper color of the whiskey, kind of catching light from the window here against this matte black. Now, they make different colors in these. I chose matte black because I'm kind of matte black everything in my life. He can attest to that. Pretty much anybody who's been to my house can attest to that. But they look, I would say, probably way cooler than what the Glencairn is, but the nose is not as much there. I will say, however, for an average whiskey drinker, that's a lot more comfortable in your hand. It's solid. I mean, it's a meaty glass and stuff, but there is definitely not as much there. You cannot pick out those individual notes in the nose as much as you can with the Glencairn. You still got them. I mean, they're still there, but they're definitely more muted.
I shoved my whole nose into this thing to see if I could get notes. And I mean, I can tell there's obviously something that's not water or glass in there. Okay. But I could not tell you that this was Eagle Rare. Side by side between these two, I could not have told you that this was the same whiskey. So this would actually be very good for a cigar hangout, chill, sure. Whiskey with cigars. Different than this Glencairn because of the fact that you don't really want holding your glass to warm up the glass. And sure. When you're holding a Glencairn, there's like one safe place to hold it, and that's right here. If you hold it like this, your hand is heating up that whiskey, and it's changing the flavor because it's evaporating off some of that alcohol. So if you're holding it like this, it's not going to be advantageous for long periods of time.
And that's, I would say, the biggest benefit of so far the Norlan versus the Glencairn. However, that absence of nose, I would say, almost evens that out. So this would be something, if you're hanging out for a long time, yeah, that's beneficial. Now, let's find out, is it worth it compared to the old standby, which is the traditional rocks glass? I would say
these nice Maker's Mark glasses.
90% of people who drink whiskey are probably drinking out of this.
Well, I mean, instantly the nose is better than the Norlan's.
You think so? See, I've got almost nothing there.
But I can smell something. I could get grape notes from the Glencairn. I couldn't get barely anything from the Norlan's glass, but this rocks glass, I can get those grape notes again.
The nose is definitely there, but I think the ultimate taste test between all of these is what's the flavor. That's why you drink whiskey anyway. So let's dive into the taste. Yeah.
Yep.
Cheers.
Grape soda. Yeah, that tastes so good.
Spice is a decent finish for a low proof whiskey. Eagle Rare is just a solid whiskey. As far as tasting it goes, again, a little bit more awkward to hold, a little bit more awkward to drink out of. They're a little bit more delicate. And so if you've drunk a lot out of one of these bottles, as far as security goes, you might want to choose a different glass. But if you're just doing a tasting, man, there's nothing that beats this. This is funneling that flavor into your mouth. I mean, it gives you that variety. It gives you the option to kind of sip. It isolates the nose out of it when you're tasting it as well. Some of these other glasses, you end up having to kind of stick your whole face in. Whereas this one, when you take a sip, your nose is kind of separated from it. And so you get a little bit more of the flavor just kind of focused in. Yeah, solid. I mean, I don't think you can beat that as far as getting those flavors.
One of the things I will say, though, it is a little bit difficult to drink out of because when it's obviously like this low in your glass, you really have to throw your head back.
Yeah. Which means
to actually finish it.
We'll see how that stacks up against the others, but.
Yep. So initially, looking here at this rocks glass, you can't see the tulip shape on the inside. You can with the clear ones.
Yeah.
But it looks, I mean, it looks similar on the shape.
Sure. Let's see how it tastes.
One of the things right off the bat that I don't like about this, and I'm not trying to pick this straight up apart.
They're messy.
Yeah, so you can see the line here where my lip is supposed to go, and it's supposed to keep that in. I've had a beard for many years now, and one of the things that you learn having a beard is actually kind of gross.
You get messy.
But you get food, you get water, you get liquor into your beard, and this makes it even just that
worse.
Little bit harder.
That first sip that I took with this, and immediately dribbling out of the glass. I mean, noticeable dribbles coming out of the side of the glass and stuff that way. I think because of that thicker wall, so you can't get quite as much of a seal on the outside of it. I don't know if you can see that, but that's pretty messy. As far as flavor goes, I would say it's probably similar. However, I am getting a little bit of nose while I'm taking a sip because that opening is that little bit bigger.
I don't think the taste is even as vibrant as you get with a Glencairn. I think it accentuated some of the more spicy, like the rye spice elements of this bourbon that are not necessarily ones that you forefront with a Glencairn.
Sure.
I didn't get that grape soda forward. I got much, much more of a rye corn flavor.
I think what they're trying to do with these glasses is to kind of elevate your average, like, hanging out whiskey tasting. Not necessarily find the quintessential whiskey tasting glass. We'll see what it's like compared to this. I guess what we'd be trying to find out with that Norlan's glass is if you're hanging out with a friend or something that way and you're drinking whiskey together, holding onto it for a while, is it better than just your traditional? Is it worth it for the price? Because these are not necessarily inexpensive. They're pretty expensive as far as a single glass or some kind of glassware goes. So let's figure out.
I mean, they're easily the most expensive in this tasting. I mean, Glencairns, depending on how many you buy, Glencairns at their cheapest, you can get them for a little under $5 a piece.
Yeah.
The Norlans are what, closer to 15?
15 or 20. I think they're actually $20 a piece. So they really you'd want to stack them up. Now, obviously, a lot of that you're paying for, especially right now, is that Instagrammable, like, ad kind of cool look factor. It's a little gimmicky maybe, but compared to these, which are a dime a dozen? I mean, you can go down to your local thrift store or Goodwill or something and find a rocks glass for 50 cents.
So this, from the flip side of the Norlan's, I get grape soda, but none of the grains.
I don't have almost any of the oak or the char either from the barrel. Like, yeah, you're right. You got some of the citrus and stuff that way. No, it's just this particular whiskey compared to that Glencairn.
I feel like the Norlan's and the rocks glass are polar opposites, and then the Glen is there in the middle with all the flavors.
Sure. Yeah, I see that. I think that also... man, there's no choice but heating up the glass when you're holding this. I mean,
you can kind of hold it from the bottom.
They make that little thicker section at the bottom, I think more for durability than anything. But even holding it to isolate and stuff like that, man, you're going to be heating up this glass. If you're hanging on to this for anything more than 5 or 10 minutes, like, there's no choice but it. Definitely easier to drink out of than the Norlan's. I would say even easier to drink out of than a Glen. Now, we're used to Glens. This is definitely easier to drink out of. So as far as casual, like, let's say a whiskey that you've already tasted before, and you're looking to just hang out, and you don't need to, go all flex with a Glen or a Norlan or something like that. You got a buddy over, and you're just there to talk, and the whiskey is not the main focus. I would say these are perfect. They're easy to clean. They're easy to hold. You're not worried about them tipping over when you have them on a table or something like that. That's why they're the old standby, I think. But what do you think?
So I'm going to sum this up and how I feel with a sentence for each. If you're doing a tasting, Glen's. If you're hanging out with a friend, drinking a cigar, or you want to make a cocktail, mixed drink, whatever, rocks glass. If you're taking pictures for Instagram, this is your glass. It is good at neither of the specific things. But it looks absolutely badass. This is your glass.
So what's your motivation? I guess that's our sum up. There's not necessarily any one right thing. Obviously, we would always say use what you got. It's the important part is getting together with a friend and drinking whiskey. So even if you just have plastic Dixie cups, use those. But these are our opinions on which glassware to use.
But if you were doing a tasting, Nate, would you think it's worth it to buy some Glens?
I would always say it's worth it to buy Glens. I mean, if you're buying a bottle of whiskey that's already going to be $30, $40, $50
or above.
I'm in the paint industry. I would equate it to how you'd use a brush. When you buy a more expensive paint but you use a cheap brush, you get cheap results because of the brush that you use. If you're buying an expensive whiskey or a nicer whiskey or a rare whiskey or something like that, putting it in a cheaper or a, I don't know, less refined glass, maybe a glass that it's not intended to get the tasting, you are missing a lot of the benefit to that whiskey. And in that point, you might as well just be using the bottom shelf type whiskey or something that way. So,
yep,
that's my opinion.
Alrighty, I think we're both in agreement.
Yeah, tune in next time. We'll be going through some kind of whiskey related issue. But anyway, I'm Nate.
I'm John.
Thanks for watching. We're
Gentlemen of Whiskey. Like, comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear your comments on whether you like Glen's, Norlan's, rocks glasses. And we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good. Later. Cheers.